This is God. Pure awareness, pure creative power, pure love. No judgments here, only love. God is everything. So, let's have a look at a handful of God's creations. This blue wavy thing is God, and in it swims God. God has a certain perception of the world in this particular form and from this particular level of awareness. Though God is very well aware and present as always, God may not be aware of God in this form or this. Anyway, all of a sudden comes God and devours God. Still no judgment, it simply is what it is. However, God is very well aware of the scene that just played out, because God is here and here and here, and God is all over. And God knows that God is all around. That is no secret. God knows this, and thus feels connected to everything in existence. There is a harmonizing balance in God's life, like a giant cooperation, where God playfully brings forth wonderful experiences to God. We usually refer to this state as being in a flow. Since God is creative, God comes up with all sorts of things. Sometimes God gets a little absorbed and lost in these creations, and God just might forget that God is God, as well as God might forget that God is everything around God. God may then very well start to see God as a tree instead of God, or God simply as water instead of God. God then becomes detached from God, and everything is experienced to God completely different. God then ends up in fights and struggles. But luckily, God always comes along to remind God that God is God. Well, sometimes the God that comes to remind God is almost equally detached from God as God is. But if God is willing to listen and trust in God, one pace at a time, little by little, God will find back to the realization of being God. Sometimes God sees God and thinks that God is way too slow in finding back to being God. God may then intervene and decide to shake God awake. And this is often referred to as spiritual awakening. Now, this term, spiritual awakening, is often looked upon from an inverted perspective. This is not a human being having a spiritual, godlike experience. This is the spirit, God, having a human experience. It's all a matter of which state of awareness is currently operating this vehicle. The mind connected to this vehicle is merely meant to be a useful toolbox and to obey its creator, being Spirit, God. And Spirit, God, is the rightful operator of his own creation and his own experience. And so it is.